This film broke me. It finally happened. This film broke Brandon, aka the Brando Critic. I have no idea how I'm going to review this movie, because there's nothing to review. In my eyes, art is all about emotion. It's about the emotional experience you have with that art, whether that be a painting, whether that be a piece of music, or a movie. It's all about the emotion that you get from viewing, hearing, experiencing this piece of art. The reason why I bring this up is because when I was watching this movie in the theater, I had zero emotion on my face the entire time. When I did my out of the theater reaction video, I did the same thing. I said the entire time when watching this movie, I was going like this. And the whole theater around me was really into this movie. I was actually kind of shocked. Any funny moment, they were just clapping and cheering and like crying, laughing. An emotional scene, they were bawling their eyes out. And at the end of the movie, they were clapping, they were cheering. Now, I will admit, the after credit scene did kind of spark a little, ooh, that's kind of interesting. But that's it. And this is the thing. When I was asked to see this movie, asked, do you want to attend the press screening to see the Marvels? I really didn't want to go. I saw the trailer for this movie and it looked awful. It looked terrible. I'm like, this movie looks so bland, so generic. I just did not want to watch it. But I've seen every single Marvel movie and I'm like, I have to. I have a YouTube channel. People talk about Marvel movies. Marvel movies are this big thing. Not so much anymore. And I'm starting to really gauge that from my audience, at least from people in the comment section, and just people in my own personal life. They don't care about Marvel anymore. It's even harder for them to care about movies anymore. Watching the Marvels had no impact on me. There might have been one scene where I cringed. And that's it. Maybe one line, I think Kamala Khan says, "We have our heading." And of course, anyone who has ever owned a Disney DVD before, you know that that line is from Jack Sparrow. And I said, oh, look, Jack Sparrow. And that's it. Now, I'm going to try to talk about what is actually in the movie, but I wanted to get that out of the way first because I think there's a big divide now when it comes to Marvel movies, especially. There are the people who are big Marvel fans and will consume every single piece of Marvel content. And if you are one of those people, more power to you. Like, for example, I went to go see this movie with a friend, and then our other Movie Scene Canada critic, I was sitting in between them, and they were both enjoying the movie. We all went out for drinks afterwards, and they were raving about the movie and how much they loved it. I didn't want to shit on their parade. I'm like, you know what? Great. I wish I was in their boat. Totally fine. There are those people, and then there's people who I think just enjoy things happening on screen. You know, those kind of people who just, they've never seen a bad movie in their lives. I think if you are one of those people, you will like this movie. But if you're a movie person like me, who just is just tired of the lackluster quality that's been coming out of Marvel, and for the most part, bigger blockbusters, and of course we still have some great ones, Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible, whatever, then this movie is, and someone said this in the comment section of my short, a nothing burger. I think that's brilliant, by the way. I want to start using that a lot more often when discussing things that are just, it's a nothing burger. There's nothing to review here. There's no experience that I had that I can say, oh, I like this, I didn't like this. There's nothing here. And my best comparison, I would say, is Transformers: The Last Knight. I remember seeing that movie in the theater and just being, like, it wasn't even boredom. It was just this numbness, a total lack of any human connection, any emotion, nothing. And then as soon as it was over, it's just like, I guess I just sat in a theater and just went, I spaced out for like 2 hours. That is the Marvels. I don't want to necessarily do the film school report card because I find those reviews extremely boring, and I've been guilty of doing that myself because it's like I got to try to find something to say about this movie. Oh, the cinematography was content, and the sound design was pretty good, and the action was okay. Even for like fluff, like, oh, this movie's got good action, but there's not much substance, or this movie's got good, comedic relief, but there's no, substance. This movie didn't even have that. The action scenes I thought were dull. I can't even picture like any action scenes to talk about right now. Like, they were so unmemorable. And the comedy, while sure, there are many comedic scenes in this movie, and there was one section of the movie, it reminded me of the scene in Triangle of Sadness when like the boat is like going through the storm, where it's just a gong show. If you're not Canadian, look that up. But it's just craziness. And the whole theater was crying laughing. I hadn't had an experience like that in a long time, where the theater was just erupting with laughter. And I'm sitting there going like this. And here's the thing. There are the two main comedic scenes in this movie, and they're so random, and they're so out there, and they're so odd. And you have to be careful when you put those kind of scenes in your movie, because one of two things can happen. One, it's such a mishmash of oddities that it works. I think of like the Disney Hercules, when you had like gospel music, and then the guy who, designed or drew for like Pink Floyd's The Wall, and then you have Michael Bolton doing the singing, and then it's like ancient Greece. It's like, this is so odd, but it works. Same with the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm watching a movie with a talking raccoon and a giant tree, and it's like, what the hell am I watching? And there's like, the 70s songs, and it's really crass, and there's a lot of, humor that you wouldn't think would be in a superhero movie, but it worked. But you got to be careful with that, because then the second thing can happen. It can just come across as stupid. And I was the only one, at least it felt that way, in the theater when these scenes were happening. Like, for example, I won't spoil the entire scenes, but, Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau and Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, they all go to this planet where everyone has to speak a certain way, communicate a certain way. They're wearing all these eccentric pieces of clothing, and there's a certain relationship that Carol Danvers has with one of the people on this planet. I was shocked at how loud this theater got. And again, I don't want to necessarily judge these people, because I'm like, maybe they actually thought it was funny. And someone said it in the comment section too of my short. It's like, the masses are just getting used to being spoon-fed just slop. You know what I mean? And I used this analogy too. It's like, once you've tasted a gourmet, like 5-star restaurant, you don't necessarily want to go back to Applebee's, or for Canadians out there, go back to Boston Pizza, although Boston Pizza is not bad. But you see my point here, where it's just, we're so used to just getting fed this mediocreness, right? And the second scene I'm talking about is with those cats. Like you see in the trailer, the cat that has like all the, like those like tentacle things that like they can eat crazy amounts of things. Yeah, it was just nuts. But the theater was just going crazy about it, right? So the comedy, right? And this review is going all over the place. I understand that. The comedy did not work for me. It just didn't. I'm like, this is stupid. I just think this is not funny whatsoever, what the whole theater did. But going into the actual movie, the one thing I will say, and one thing that I did like, was Kamala Khan. Now, I don't care at all about the Marvel TV shows. I just don't have any interest in seeing them. None of them tickle my fancy, right? I'm just like, I don't care. But I will say this, her character had some energy, and her character had some spunk, and she was actually happy to be there. I could tell that the actress, I don't know her name, and I didn't look it up before this video because I just don't care. If you want to know who it is, you guys can look it up. And I think, you guys know if you're going to see this movie or not, right? She had some personality and presence in this movie. Monica Rambeau was just, she was there. And I said this about the first Captain Marvel movie, and that movie I wiped clean from my brain, but it was kind of coming back to me when watching this movie. I think she's completely miscast. And I think it was Red Letter Media that made that joke. Captain Miscast. Yeah, totally. I thought she was phoning it in. And I'm like, why should I care about any of this? She's such an unlikable character. And there was one scene, I will say this, when I cringed during the screening. When she's talking about how she's sorry that she had to go and destroy this AI monster because she thought she was saving someone's world, but then of course she started like this big uprising with the supervillain, whatever, this, comic book fluff, right? And she's like, and I was just so sad about it. And I'm like, this is so bad. It's so bad. Academy Award winner Brie Larson. By the way, Room is one of the best female performances I've ever seen. Right next to Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. She is amazing in that movie. Here she's awful. And you see a tear or two come down her face, and I'm thinking, I legitimately thought that has to be CGI. That has to be, because there's no way that she can just pull a tear out of that performance. Unless maybe she's a lot better of an actress than I actually think. But regardless, these three actresses, I don't think had any chemistry together. And that's the thing too, when you think of the story, it's like, okay, you got another generic Marvel villain with no, I mean, they tell the motivation to us, right? But there's no stakes. I didn't feel anything. Like I said, the stakes were low. The action did not feel exciting. The character moments, the character drama felt hollow. It just felt like things were happening on screen. So you missed the character mark, you've missed the story mark, you've missed the emotional impact mark. I've used this analogy so many times with like a cake, right? You have the characters, you have the story, and you have the emotional investment. Those are the three layers of the cake. The icing is just the action and the comedy. There's nothing here. It's an empty plate. Like, what am I supposed to talk about, right? Now, don't give me this shit where it's just like, okay, well, you don't like this movie because it's women. You. Clueless is one of my favorite movies of all time. Bridesmaids is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. Mean Girls, Legally Blonde, like, there are movies about women just with other women, and it's not like, just women vying over a man, right? I think there's like that test where it's like, 90% of movies don't have, two women talking to each other without a man, whatever, right? Regardless, I love movies about women if they're done right. You can make a good movie about anything, starring anyone in any location, doesn't matter. So it's not that. 2, people will say, oh, well, you're just not a Marvel fan. I am a Marvel fan. If I wasn't a Marvel fan, I wouldn't be so loyal to these guys. Now, I haven't watched the TV shows since, I think, like Hawkeye, right? I've just been too tired of them. But every single movie, I feel like I have to stay on this hype train. I still gotta be, on the Marvel train. My first date ever was opening night to Iron Man, 2008. I was 12 years old, right? So I've been with this franchise for a very long time. Avengers Infinity War is amazing. Captain America, my cat just wants some attention. Here, why don't you say hi, everybody? This is Roger. He's such a cutie. Oh, he likes that. Oh my God, he really does like that. I just want him to like the cats in the movie. Just go crazy with all of his tentacles and stuff. Please don't do that, Roger. I'm just trying to think. Maybe he'll start purring in the microphone. But anyways, my train of thought is going all over the place. But you know what? Let's try to keep like these reviews to a minimum, or these edits in the review to a minimum. But that's the thing, right? Like, okay, oh, you're not a Marvel fan. I am a Marvel fan. I want these movies to be good. I never go into a movie wanting to hate it. Ever. It's just really disappointing. And, like, I feel like a lot of times I just don't want him to like stop the recording. You know what I mean? And a lot of times people will say, well, this movie is made for the fans, right? I think that this movie did a very bad job at, having a very contained story. This movie felt like you had to have watched WandaVision, right? You have had to watch Miss Marvel. You had to watch Captain Marvel. You had to have a lot of knowledge about the MCU, and he is just loving this attention. Oh my God, this is amazing. See, and that's the thing. It's like I would have just rather just sat at home and pet my cat for 2 hours as opposed to watching this big budget, epic blockbuster. There's nothing here. And that's why I say it broke me, because I don't think if the next Marvel movie comes out and I think the trailer looks bad or I'm not interested in it, I'm not going to see it. That's the chain. The chain has been broken. So, oh my God, I just can't believe how much he loves this. You guys should see his eyes. He's just loving it. But anyways, before I give my rating, we're keeping this in. This is more entertaining than the movie, by the way, right? Anyways, before I give you guys my rating, I will say this video is sponsored by Into the AM. And I didn't do my intro. I didn't do any of that stuff because, again, like, you guys know if you're going to see this movie or not, and you might just want to hear me rant. But I do want to talk about Into the AM just real quick. I'm not going to sell you guys some garbage, right? Like, oh, this special cream makes your hair... No, none of that crap. This is actually a good brand. I wear their clothing all the time. It fits. It feels good. The link is down below. You guys can get a discount. Now, I was thinking about a rating for this. I'm like, well, nothing in this movie except for one thing like made me cringe. And I'm like, not like going, this movie's so terrible. But the lack of anything worth seeing again, worth discussing. I have to give this movie a 1 out of 5. And there are many 1 out of 5s in my repertoire, which I definitely liked less than this, or hated more, right? And I'm sure, you know what, there's some 2 out of 5s that have more things in them that just I despise, or I just really don't like, or I had a miserable time watching certain parts of those movies. But that's the thing. It's like, you know, when you're grading papers in school, of course you have the A's and the B's and the C's, and then you have the F's, which you failed, but then there's the I's, the incompletes. Like I said, there's nothing on the plate here. You go to a restaurant and you get a plate with no food on it, you can't review the food because you didn't have any. I can't review this movie because there was no emotion in it. We get another just boring villain. No action, no comedy that worked for me. I will say that. This is the final straw for me with Marvel. I'm done. If a Marvel movie comes out that I genuinely think looks good, I will go see it. And if it happens to be good, I will tell you guys. Because I'm not one just to, you know, like I say in a lot of videos, I want to cut through all the toxic fandom, right? Like, I'm not going to hate a movie for the simple fact that it goes against my fandom is garbage. You see Star Wars stuff behind me, it's because I genuinely like Star Wars for the most part, but I will be the first to admit there's a lot of garbage Star Wars out there. You know what I mean? And I'll tell that to you guys. But that is, you know, the status of things with Marvel now. And the Marvels was just such an empty experience. So I want you guys to tell me, did you have an empty experience with this too? Or are you in the camp that are like, this is the movie that... Roger's biting my toes, so if I yelp, that's just what's going on. He wants attention. I know. If you're in that, you know, group of Marvel fans or people who just genuinely like this movie, by all means, tell me. You know, tell me, hey, Brandon, I actually really enjoyed this movie because of A, B, and C, and I'll be very happy for you. There's no hidden agenda here. I don't hate this movie because, like, I hate women. That's just foolish to think. I don't hate this movie because I'm a DC fanboy in the closet. No, none of that garbage. Just get out of here with that garbage. I just didn't like this movie because it gave me no emotion. And he's climbing his cat tree right there. There you go, guys. So if you like this video and you want to see more videos just like it, then hit like and subscribe. If you want to join the Brando Movie Club, I want to try to, you know, create a logo or create something like that. Basically, it's my Patreon group. We watch movies every single month. It's like a book club, but for movies. A lot of fun. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys all so much for your support and have a great night. Talk to you soon.